As of the time that this video is posted, it is 2 days before Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day. What better time to talk about Kale's life and her relationships between the Cell and Boo saga than right before Valentine's Day. So, since what will pertain to this part, now would be the best time for me to go over the results of the poll I posted 3 weeks ago. To refresh people's memory, the question on the poll was, who should Android 18 choose to get with? Which, 3 people voted for 18 getting with Krillin, and 4 people voted for 18 getting with Kale. So, at some point in this timeline, Kale and 18 will get in a relationship together. That's far in the future, though, since as of right now, Kale and Sala don't even have a house of their own. At the time, they were staying at Kame House, which is a little small for them since Krillin and Roshi also live there. Over time, they likely would have got tired of dealing with Roshi's perverted antics as well, so they would decide to leave. As much as Kale doesn't like Vegeta, she still gets along with Bulma, so she might go to Capsule Corporation to ask Bulma for help with getting them a house built. They hate to ask for something big like that, but they don't have a way to afford a house on their own. Though, there is a way it could be a win for both sides. Regardless, Bulma would likely help them, which they would have to decide where they want their house to be. Since they were originally from Namek in this timeline, they would try to find a location reminiscent of Namek. Which, the perfect spot would be that lake area that Piccolo's house is at in the superhero movie. When talking to Bulma about getting a house made, she might also talk to her about how she used to study life on Namek, and that she had enclosures and greenhouses made so she could do so. This is where the win for both sides could come in, as Bulma might be able to find ways to use Kale's research to help things at Capsule Corporation. For example, Capsule Corporation could start a wildlife conservation program with the help of Kale and her research, since through her studies, Kale would likely learn which environments need help. It likely wouldn't take too long for Bulma to get their house, the enclosures, and the greenhouses set up for Kale and Solo. But since they have the funding of Capsule Corporation behind them, they would likely be far more advanced than what she had on Namek, so they would be better suited to doing her research. Also because of Capsule Corporation funding them, there would likely be different types of enclosures there for different types of animals, such as ones for birds, ones for fish, ones for insects, etc. After it was finished, Kale would likely travel the Earth to find many diverse plant species and animals that catch her interest, or that Bulma or others from Capsule Corporation asked her to research. So, she might end up working a lot with Bulma and other scientists from Capsule Corporation, like she did on Namek. She might also keep some animals she likes as pets. She would likely also start a personal garden of her own with the plants she likes. Sala might help her daughter in this research as well, not only because it would give her something to do, but it could also help her get closer to Kale. She likes nature somewhat as well, so it would work as a shared interest between the two. So, they would both end up working on this research together often, at least until Kale decided to go train at Planet Yardrat like Goku suggested her to. But that wouldn't happen for a bit, as she didn't want to jump into training right away. Besides the research she was doing in plants and animals, the major thing on her mind was 18. After 18 had told her, later, on the lookout, she had been looking forward to seeing her again, which 18 wouldn't know about Kale and Sola's new house right away, as that wouldn't have been in her knowledge, as it obviously wouldn't have been in Jiro's data. So, when 18 would show up at Kame House looking for Kale, since that's where she stayed before, she wouldn't find her. So, either Krillin or Roshi would tell 18 where her house is, but I think it would likely be Roshi to tell her. On a brief tangent, Roshi would likely be the one to tell her, since with Krillin and Kale, their friendship might have become a little awkward after the Cell games ended. At first it would have been fine, with Krillin coming to visit her at her new house, or her going to Kame House to hang out with them when they weren't busy. Though, eventually, Krillin would likely get up the nerve to confess his feelings to Kale. This wouldn't end well for him, though, as she would let him know that she doesn't have a romantic interest in males. Which, this is when their relationship would become awkward, as Kale would then leave shortly after rejecting him, with Krillin potentially being left in tears. When they would see each other afterwards or try to hang out with each other as friends again afterwards, they likely wouldn't know how to act or what to say to each other. This would lead to their relationship deteriorating a lot, so at some point they would likely begin avoiding each other. Regardless, back with 18. After Roshi directed her to Kale's new house, she would make her way there. Of course, Kale would be surprised to see that 18 shown up there, but she would let her in and show her around. She would also show her the enclosures and greenhouses for plants and animals she had. We don't know when 17 did, but if he got into the park ranger stuff by this point, 18 might bring him eventually to see these animals and plants. Kale might also go and visit the park he's a ranger at, since they both have the shared interest of nature. Either way, 18 and Kale would get closer over time and slowly become friends. Since she has romantic feelings for 18 that would slowly become stronger over time, she might go to Sala for relationship advice. She might even go to Capsule Corporation to visit Bulma and get advice for it as well. While there, she could potentially even ask Dr. Brief and Bikini for advice as well, since they've presumably been married for a while. Eventually she might go and ask Chi-Chi for advice on it too, since Kale thinks she would have good insight as well. She usually goes and visits Bulma and Chi-Chi anyway, so she could just ask them for advice on one of her normal visits. So, with this advice in mind, she would eventually build up the courage to ask 18 out. The romantic feelings slowly would have become mutual by this point, so 18 would accept, so they begin their relationship. After some time passes and they were in a relationship together for a while, to the point that they were going to move in together, Kale would likely request Bulma's help in getting another house built for her in 18. This house would be close to the one she and Sala already have together, as the lake area still reminds Kale of her original home, Planet Namek. So, after this house is built and their relationship continued to grow stronger, they would eventually get married to each other. Assuming their relationship progressed as fast as Krillin and 18's relationship did in the original story, they would get married at age 770, which is 3 years after they got together. Also, Kale might get more enclosures for animals and other greenhouses made behind her new house, along with planting a new garden there. So, both Kale and Sala would now have a garden of their own, though they would probably both share the duty of studying the animals in their enclosures and the plants in their greenhouses. Then after getting married, she might finally prepare to go and train on yard rat like Goku had suggested before he sacrificed himself. Even though fighting isn't an enjoyment for Kale, after the Cell game she is no longer reluctant to fight, as she's seen the problems being reluctant can cause. Anyway, since she took note of Planet Yardrat's location after going there with Goku all those years ago, she would get Bulma's help in preparing a spaceship for her to return there. She might be able to convince 18 to go along with her, so the two of them would go to Yardrat together and train there. Kale likely would have offered Sala to come as well, but she would turn down this offer. Since Paragus was at least in his early 80s in age 780, and assuming Sala is around the same age, she'd at least be in her late 60s or early 70s at most by this time. So, she would want to relax and would officially retire from fighting. Anyway, someone needs to take care of the animals in Kale's garden while they were gone, so Sala would offer to do that for her daughter. So, at most, they would be on Yardrat up until age 774, with the newlywed couple being trained in spirit control by Paibara together. Since they are on Yardrat for longer than Goku was, and they are stronger than Goku was when he was there, the two of them will learn more than just an instant transmission technique. They will learn cloning, gigantification, healing, and force spirit fission while they are there. Paibara also would be able to help Kale get better control of her anger and help her access her Super Saiyan form at will. He would likely even be able to help her ascend to the Super Saiyan 2 form during their time in training. So, her burst of anger would be reduced to none, since after her spirit training, she has great control over her emotions. It would probably take something drastic, or someone she doesn't like, to cause her anger to snap at this point. Anyway, after Kale and 18 finished their training in spirit control together, they would both return to their home on Earth, which they would then catch Sala up on how their training went, as well as Kale going back to doing research on animals and plants as well. She would likely catch up her other friends on Earth on everything too when she went to visit them next. Speaking of her friends, as mentioned earlier, Krillin and Kale's friendship would have been awkward at first after she rejected him. Though, after he got over those feelings over time, the awkwardness between the two would start to vanish, so they would slowly rebuild their friendship from the ground up, with it eventually going back to what it used to be before. Regardless, now that Kale and 18 were back on Earth and they caught everyone up on their training, they would return home and do whatever they wanted to, since they got to relax in this time of peace.